Most people believe billionaires live in a different universe, a world of private jets, insider connections, and endless second chances. But history shows something far more shocking. The higher someone climbs, the more catastrophic their fall can be. Because when billionaires make mistakes, they don't just lose money, they lose empires, reputations, and sometimes everything they built in a lifetime. And the scariest part is that most of these collapses didn't come from bad luck. They came from one decision, one blind spot, one moment of arrogance that changed everything overnight. Imagine waking up as one of the richest people in the world, controlling companies, influencing markets, shaping industries. Now, imagine going to sleep, knowing that one choice you made has triggered investigations, market crashes, and headlines predicting your downfall. This isn't fiction. It has happened repeatedly, and it keeps happening because success often hides the warning signs of failure. The pattern almost always begins the same way. Rapid growth, media praise, a reputation for being unstoppable. At this stage, the billionaire stops being questioned. Employees stop challenging decisions. Investors stop asking hard questions. Advisors begin telling the leader what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. And that's when the most dangerous illusion takes hold. The belief that past success guarantees future correctness. One of the most common fatal mistakes billionaires make is overextension driven by ego rather than strategy. When someone builds one successful company, they often start believing they can dominate any industry they enter. They invest in sectors they barely understand, assume their brand alone will guarantee success, and expand faster than systems can support. At first, the media calls them visionaries. But behind the scenes, debt grows, management becomes stretched, and cracks begin forming where no one is looking. The collapse rarely starts with a dramatic event. Instead, it begins quietly. A delayed payment, a missed forecast, a product launch that underperforms. Analysts start whispering. Insiders begin selling shares. Competitors sense weakness. And suddenly, the same confidence that once attracted investors turns into doubt that scares them away. Another fatal mistake is believing influence equals immunity. Some billionaires assume their wealth or connections will protect them from regulations, lawsuits, or market realities. They cut corners, manipulate numbers, or hide losses, thinking they can fix the problem later. But markets have a brutal memory. When the truth surfaces, and it always does, trust evaporates instantly. Investors don't just leave, they run. And when trust disappears, valuation follows. There's also the psychological trap of success addiction. Billionaires often become addicted not to money, but to winning. Every deal must be bigger than the last. Every acquisition must be more dramatic. They stop seeing risk as something to manage and start seeing it as something to conquer. That mindset works during growth phases, but becomes lethal when markets shift. Because risk ignored today becomes crisis tomorrow. Consider how many financial empires were destroyed, not by external forces, but by internal denial. Leaders ignored warning signs because admitting problems felt like admitting weakness. Reports were softened, losses were delayed, reality was postponed. By the time the truth reached the public, it wasn't a problem anymore. It was a disaster. Timing is another silent killer. Billionaires who dominate one economic era often assume their strategies will work forever. But industries evolve. Technology changes consumer behavior. New competitors rewrite rules. Those who adapt survive. Those who cling to past formulas become case studies in decline. The wealth that once seemed permanent starts shrinking quarter by quarter, until the empire that looked indestructible suddenly looks outdated. One overlooked mistake is the failure to build systems that outlast personality. Some billionaires create organizations that revolve entirely around their personal vision. While this can drive rapid growth, it also creates fragility. If every decision flows through one person, the company cannot function when that person misjudges reality. Extreme wealth often separates billionaires from honest feedback. Friends become employees, advisors become dependent, critics become enemies. The billionaire begins living in a filtered reality where only success stories reach their ears. without opposing voices. Even flawed ideas feel brilliant. And when everyone around you applauds, it becomes nearly impossible to detect when you're heading toward a cliff. The most dramatic collapses often come from leverage. Borrowed money can accelerate growth, but it also multiplies mistakes. When investments succeed, leverage creates legends. When they fail, leverage creates bankruptcies. Billionaires sometimes forget that debt doesn't just increase returns, it increases consequences. One wrong bet becomes a chain reaction of margin calls, forced sales, and public panic. Reputation risk is another underestimated threat. Billionaires often think their brand is strong enough to survive controversy. But in the digital age, public perception moves faster than corporate response. One scandal, one leaked document, one questionable decision can trigger global backlash within hours. Investors fear reputational damage more than financial loss because reputation determines future opportunity. Once it cracks, rebuilding takes years. And yet, the most tragic collapses aren't purely financial, they're emotional. Because behind every lost empire is a person who once believed they were building something lasting. The fall isn't just about money disappearing. It's about identity collapsing. When someone has spent decades being defined by success, failure feels like losing themselves. That's why some billionaires double down on failing strategies, not because they didn't see the risk, but because admitting the mistake feels unbearable. Interestingly, the fatal mistake is rarely obvious at the time. It often looks like confidence, ambition, or bold leadership. Markets initially reward these traits. Investors cheer big moves. Media celebrates fearless decisions. But the line between boldness and recklessness is invisible until it's crossed. And by the time it becomes visible, it's often too late. The stories of collapsed billionaires share one chilling truth. Wealth doesn't remove risk, it amplifies it. The more resources someone controls, the larger the consequences of their decisions. Small mistakes made by average people cause small losses. Small mistakes made by billionaires can erase billions, but there's also a deeper lesson hidden beneath these stories. The real difference between billionaires who recover and those who disappear isn't intelligence or luck, it's humility. Those who survive treat success as temporary and risk as permanent. They question themselves constantly. They invite criticism. They prepare for downturns while still growing. They understand that markets don't care about past victories, only current performance. For viewers, the fascination with billionaire failures isn't just about drama. It's about insight, because the same patterns that destroyed billionaires operate in everyday decisions too. Overconfidence, denial, ignoring feedback, chasing growth without stability. These behaviors scale at every level. The difference is simply the size of the consequences. If there's one universal truth across every fallen empire, it's this. Success creates the conditions for its own destruction when it convinces people they can fail. The moment someone believes they're untouchable is usually the moment they become most vulnerable. And perhaps the most powerful realization is that most billionaires who fell didn't run out of opportunities. They ran out of time to correct one decision, because markets move fast, but reputations collapse faster. Once panic begins, recovery becomes exponentially harder. Investors don't wait for explanations, they react to fear. And fear spreads faster than facts. So the next time you see headlines about a collapsing empire, or a billionaire losing billions overnight, remember that the downfall probably didn't start that day. It likely began months or even years earlier with a decision that seemed harmless, logical, even brilliant at the time. Fatal mistakes rarely look fatal in the beginning. They look like confidence. They look like ambition. They look like success. And that's exactly why they're so dangerous. If you want to see more untold stories of power, money, and the hidden decisions that shape history, visit the channel and watch the next video.